Ohio was once the heart of American grit, a place where steel, sweat, and family built the future. But now, something darker spreads through its veins. The factories are gone, the jobs are dusty, and in their place, fentanyl, tents, and silence. Not the silence of peace, but of collapse. Behind every boarded-up window is a story no one wants to hear, of mothers lost to overdoses, of children growing up in shelters, of lives unraveled by addiction. This isn't just a crisis, it's a warning. If this story matters to you, like, subscribe, and help us bring the truth into the light. There was a time when Cleveland's skyline shimmered with promise, when Columbus buzzed with growth and Akron pulsed with the rhythm of industry. But today, those same cities tell a different story, one written in syringes, shattered windows, and shadows that never quite leave the streets. Ohio's urban centers have become war zones, not of politics or ideology, but of survival. In Cleveland, more than 3,000 people sleep without shelter on any given night. But their presence isn't always visible.
Not enough places here. There's not enough places in Cleveland to house the homeless. And that's the biggest problem that they're fighting. They're trying their best. I know they are, because I've lived in a lot of the shelters here. They're trying their best.
Some tuck themselves behind dumpsters. Others find corners under overpasses, surrounded by makeshift walls of shopping carts and plastic tarps. The city's old industrial bones have become skeletons of despair, hollowed out by a drug that doesn't just kill, it erases. Fentanyl is everywhere. It's not the whispered danger it once was. It's open, daily, and terrifyingly normalized. Alleyways behind corner stores serve as injection points. Fast food bathrooms, once a quick pit stop, now carry the heavy scent of chemicals and desperation. Narcan dispensers cling to streetlight poles like a silent confession. Someone's going to drop here tonight, and we know it.
So I was probably using about $100 a day on heroin.
In 2024 alone, Cuyahoga County saw over 900 opioid-related deaths, a number that doesn't just climb, it climbs faster every year. And what's worse, many of the dead had no address, no next of kin, no headlines. They faded, like mist, into a system too overwhelmed to remember them. Columbus, once the crown jewel of Ohio's economic hope, is now drowning. Its shelters are full. The lines for food stretch longer with each passing month. Detox centers have become revolving doors, packed beyond capacity, with wait lists that read like death sentences. The city has seen a 20% surge in homelessness since 2021. And that number doesn't account for those sleeping in cars or cycling through couch after couch, high and barely hanging on. Dealers know the market. Heroin is old news. Fentanyl, deadly and dirt cheap, dominates. It's cut into pills, disguised in vape pens, baked into counterfeit prescriptions. One hit can kill. But for many, the risk is the price of peace, even if that peace lasts only a few hours. This isn't just a housing problem. It's a chemical takeover. And Ohio's cities are losing the battle one soul at a time. Out where the highways fade into cornfields and the streetlights stop at the edge of town, a quieter crisis festers. Rural Ohio, cloaked in the illusion of peace, is unraveling in silence. Unlike the cities where tents line sidewalks and sirens scream through the night, the collapse here is almost invisible. There are no protests, no front-page headlines, just cold car seats, fogged-up windows, and gas station parking lots doubling as bedrooms. In towns like Jackson and Vinton, homelessness doesn't scream. It whispers. A mother quietly parks her van behind a closed diner, draping blankets over her kids as the frost creeps in. A man with calloused hands who once fixed fences for a living now crouches in an abandoned barn, chasing a high just to keep the shaking at bay. There are no shelters nearby, no detox beds. No one is handing out hot meals. Out here, you're on your own and everyone knows it. Addiction in these places often starts not with rebellion, but with pain, a workplace injury, a car wreck on a country road, a prescription written casually by a small-town doctor for OxyContin or Vicodin. Then, without warning, the pills run dry. but the ache doesn't. And in that gap, fentanyl slides in cheap, potent, and devastating. Some say they can buy enough for the weekend with just $10. A deal, they call it. But it's a deal that comes with a cost. Jobs vanish, rent goes unpaid, relationships fracture. Suddenly, the man who built your neighbor's porch is living in a broken-down camper behind an old bowling alley. He isn't dangerous, he isn't lazy. He's just trying not to fall apart.
What we haven't seen in earnest is that part for the affordable housing piece. Community Shelter Board leans into that and wants to see that.
In rural counties, there are fewer resources, fewer second chances. Shelters, if they exist, are hours away. Public transit is non-existent. Mental health care is a luxury. And in small towns, everyone knows your name. So shame spreads faster than help. Being homeless here doesn't mean pitching a tent. It means hiding. Sleeping in shifts so no one sees. Pretending you're just passing through. But they're not passing through. They're stuck. Trapped in a place where the overdose rates rise quietly. Where addiction takes root without ever being named. The crisis is here. It just doesn't wear a sign. And that's what makes it so easy to ignore. Ohio didn't break overnight. It wasn't a sudden collapse. It was a slow, grinding unraveling. So gradual that most people didn't even notice it happening. Not until the factories were already empty. Not until the towns were half silent. Not until the people left behind had turned to anything to numb the pain. In the 1982nd, it began with Youngstown. The steel mills, once roaring with fire and purpose, fell silent. Akron lost its rubber empire. Lordstown watched as General Motors packed up and vanished, taking thousands of livelihoods with it. Across Ohio, the backbone of blue-collar America cracked. And when it did, the ripple wasn't just economic. It was emotional. People didn't just lose paychecks. They lost purpose. Into that vacuum came the drugs. First, crack. Then pills. Then heroin. And now fentanyl. Each wave deadlier than the last. Each epidemic finds easier targets in towns already hollowed out by broken promises and forgotten policies. And as the addiction spread, the systems built to catch people fell apart. Housing assistance became a waiting game, sometimes 5 years long. Mental health centers shuttered after the pandemic, their doors never reopening. Detox clinics are so scarce in rural counties, they might as well not exist.
I know fentanyl is the deadliest drug. So are a lot more people dying now than before?
Yeah, oh yeah. Because it was heroin before, and they, you know what I'm saying, and they wasn't overdosing on it like they are now. I've seen girls come in at 20 years old, asking for fentanyl, saying they're sick. I'm like, you're only 20 years old. You shouldn't even be thinking about no drugs. You should be thinking about school.
What happens when people have nowhere to turn? They turn to the street. They turn to the needle. They turn to the only thing that offers a temporary escape from a reality that no longer makes sense. This is how Ohio was left behind, not just by globalization or automation, but by decades of political neglect. While leaders argued over budgets, real people slipped through the cracks. One eviction, one job loss, one prescription, and then gone. Today, in 2025, the decay is visible. Abandoned schools, rotting homes, shelters that turn people away every night. Ohio's heart still beats, but it's faint, irregular, and growing weaker. And yet, this isn't just a tale of failure. It's a warning, a blueprint of how an entire region can be dismantled not by fire or flood, but by indifference, by letting systems rot from the inside out, by telling a generation of workers to adapt, and then giving them nothing to adapt to. Ohio didn't collapse by accident. It was allowed to. In Ohio, being homeless isn't just hard, it's illegal. Not explicitly, but in practice. Sleep on a park bench? That's loitering. Pitch a tent beneath an overpass? That's trespassing. Ask for a change on a sidewalk? That's panhandling. It doesn't matter if you're cold, hungry, sick, or trying to detox. If you're poor and visible, you're a problem to be removed, not a person to be helped. One woman in Toledo overdosed in a public park. She lived, but the city sent her a $175 ticket for disorderly conduct. She couldn't pay it. She didn't even have a place to receive the citation. 3 weeks later, she was gone. Her name never made the news. This is how the system operates. Not with compassion, but with citations. Jail cells have replaced shelter beds. Police officers have become the first responders to mental health breakdowns. The few services that do exist are out of reach for many. And even when people want help, the weight of shame keeps them in the shadows. In rural towns, the stigma is a noose. Being labeled a user can exile you socially. Families keep quiet. Employers blacklist. Neighbors look away. There's no anonymity in a place where everyone knows your truck, your past, your pain. So people stay hidden, injecting behind sheds, sleeping in fields, pretending it's all under control. And the more the laws punish, the more the cycle tightens. You get a fine you can't pay. A warrant follows. Then jail. When you're released, your record grows. Landlords refuse you. Jobs won't hire you. And the spiral continues downward, fast and often fatal. These laws don't solve the crisis. They just move it. They sweep the tents before tourists arrive, then pat themselves on the back. But the addiction doesn't leave. The trauma doesn't vanish. It just shifts out of view until the next overdose makes it impossible to ignore. To be homeless in Ohio is to be criminalized for surviving. To be addicted is to be punished for being in pain. And when your only crime is being broken, who's guilty? The person on the ground or the system that left them there? If this story opened your eyes, don't let it disappear. Share, and help us bring this truth to everyone who still hasn't seen it. Violence in Ohio's homeless crisis isn't loud. It doesn't always come with sirens or screaming. It slips in quietly, settling like smoke in the corners of forgotten places. Behind boarded-up buildings and beneath rusted overpasses, something brutal is unfolding. And the most haunting part? No one's watching.
It's going to be really extraordinary for the city, if ever, to arrest somebody because they're homeless, David. If someone's committing a crime, then we'll arrest them. If they've been
in a park a crime?
I don't think that we're really hitting the nail on the head, David.
Oh, well,
Truly, if someone's arrested for trespass, the chances of them remaining incarcerated in a way that's going to acutely solve the problem, it's extraordinarily unlikely.
In these shadowed spaces, survival is a daily gamble. For many, especially women, the threat isn't just hunger or cold, it's who's waiting in the dark. Safety is traded for shelter. Relationships are endured. Not out of love, but out of fear. A motel room bought with favors. A tent shared with someone dangerous. When you're homeless and addicted, no becomes a word that no longer works. Teenagers run from abuse at home only to find more of it in the streets. Some vanish within days, pulled into trafficking rings, gone before anyone knows they're missing. There's no one to call. No headline, no Amber Alert. Just another name lost to the system. Even among the unhoused, violence simmers. Fights erupt over blankets, over space, over silence, broken at the wrong moment. Mental illness, hunger, and withdrawal create a kind of pressure that eventually explodes. And when it does, the consequences are real. Blood on pavement, bruises that never heal, screams muffled by indifference. Outreach workers in Columbus have started carrying pepper spray just to deliver water. In Cincinnati, stabbings in encampments now happen weekly. Most are never reported. There's no trust in the system. And even if there were, who would they call? The same officers who ticket them for sleeping? But the most insidious violence isn't in fists or blades. It's in policy. It's the woman fined for loitering while waiting for a shelter bed. The man was arrested after overdosing behind a dumpster. The child whose trauma is labeled behavioral instead of being treated as pain. It's slow. It's quiet. But it's deadly. Ohio's homeless aren't just suffering. They're surviving in a world that's turned survival into a crime. And the longer we pretend not to see the bruises, the missing teeth, the broken spirits, the more complicit we become. Because this isn't just violence, it's a war. And they're fighting it alone. Look closely, and you'll see it's not just men lining Ohio's forgotten edges anymore. The face of homelessness has changed. It's softer now, younger, and more invisible than ever. She's the woman standing outside the corner store at dusk, one hand holding a stroller, the other holding back tears. She's the girl in oversized clothes pacing a motel hallway. Too wired to sleep, too scared to stop moving. In 2025, over 32% of Ohio's homeless are women, and many of them have children clinging to their sides.
About 30 women and children will be sleeping here tonight. There are no other open, available options in the city of Cleveland for emergency overflow sheltering for women and children. So if not here, where would they go?
You have no friends, you have no family. You don't know where to go, who to turn to. It's literally like you're stuck, just stuck.
But these women don't sleep on sidewalks. Their homelessness is hidden. Disguised beneath cheap makeup and borrowed coats, they stay in strangers' apartments, in trap houses with broken locks, in motel rooms they didn't pay for with money. Because when you're addicted and alone, survival comes at a cost. Sometimes it's your safety. Sometimes it's your soul. Their stories don't begin with bad decisions. They start in doctors' offices after childbirth, after surgeries, after abuse. A prescription handed over like candy, a numbing escape from postpartum depression, chronic pain, or memories too dark to face. The pills worked, until they didn't. And when the scripts ran out, fentanyl stepped in. Now, trapped in cycles of addiction and shame, many women carry not only their pain, but their children's too. They miss appointments because they can't find a ride. They lose jobs because the withdrawals hit too hard. They avoid shelters because they're afraid their kids will be taken away. Fear keeps them silent. Guilt keeps them stuck. And the children? They grow up fast, moving from couch to couch, school to school. Some witnesses overdose before they know how to spell. Others learn to lie about where they live. The instability becomes their normal until trauma hardens into armor. Or worse, addiction repeats the cycle. What's most haunting isn't just the rise in numbers. It's how invisible these lives have become. They don't hold signs at intersections. They don't scream for help. They fade into the margins, hoping someone notices before it's too late. The epidemic is no longer faceless. It wears eyeliner. It pushes a stroller. It kisses a child goodnight in the backseat of a car. And it's still not being heard. Not all homelessness is visible. And not all struggles leave marks we can see. Some people lose their homes. Others lose their place in the world. That second kind, the inner collapse, is harder to recognize, but often far more devastating. Because this isn't just about shelter. It's about disconnection, about losing meaning, trust, and identity. And across Ohio, this quiet crisis unfolds every day. For many, substance use isn't about chasing a thrill, it's about running from pain. Pain rooted in difficult pasts, childhood instability, family conflict, unresolved grief, or mental health conditions left untreated, depression that robs sleep, anxiety that isolates, trauma that makes every step forward feel impossible. In Cleveland, we meet Grace. She lives in a small camp behind a corner store, shielded by 2 milk crates and a tarp. When asked what she misses most, she doesn't mention food or warmth. She simply says, "Someone to call my name." That's what disappears out here: identity. Over time, people begin to feel like background noise. A blur at the bus stop. A shadow on the sidewalk. The longer someone is left outside, the less human they feel. You forget birthdays, conversations, even your sense of self. And society doesn't always help. Too often, the question isn't, "What happened to you?" but, "What's wrong with you?" Blame replaces compassion. Labels replace listening. And with each judgment, dignity is stripped away. The human spirit can't survive long in that place. Without purpose or belonging, even the strongest souls fracture. Some retreat inward, others grow angry, and many simply shut down. And when people seek relief through substances, society adds another label: dangerous, lazy, lost causes. But the truth is simpler. Many are abandoned. If we're going to talk about homelessness in Ohio, we can't ignore this layer, the one that can't be solved with only blankets or tents. Because unless we address the trauma beneath the surface, we're not truly helping people rebuild. We're just letting them disappear quietly. If Ohio is the heart of America, then what happens when that heart stops beating? The signs are already here. Rising overdoses, overcrowded shelters, shattered families. But the real danger isn't just what's visible. It's what's still being ignored. Because this isn't just a story of tents and tarps. It's a slow-motion collapse of a system that was never built to withstand this kind of suffering. You can't arrest your way out of an epidemic. You can't solve addiction with court dates. And you can't expect healing in a world that offers neither rest nor redemption. Ohio has tried all the wrong solutions: tent sweeps before holidays, citations for sleeping outside, and temporary shelters that close after winter ends. None of it lasts. None of it heals. And none of it gets to the root. Fentanyl doesn't wait for policies to catch up. It doesn't care about city budgets or campaign seasons. It moves fast. It's cheap, lethal, and unforgiving. And every day we delay, someone else doesn't wake up. This isn't a housing crisis. It's a humanitarian disaster. One overdose at a time. One eviction notice was left unopened. One mother who disappears without anyone asking where she went. By the time a headline is written, the tragedy has already happened. By the time help is offered, the funeral is planned. And yet, the clock keeps ticking. If this can happen in Ohio, the place that once fed the nation's factories and dreams, what makes any other state immune? What's happening in your neighborhood? Who's sleeping in their car one street over? Who just got handed a bottle they won't come back from? This isn't just a warning. It's a reflection of what we've allowed, of what we've ignored, and of how quickly the ground beneath our feet can erode when compassion is replaced by policy, when care is buried under red tape. The heart of the country is bleeding, and no one's reaching for the tourniquet. So the question isn't, will this happen elsewhere? It's, how long until it does? And when it does, will we still look away? Or will we finally listen before it's too late? What's happening in Ohio isn't a local tragedy. It's a mirror, a reflection of where we're all headed if nothing changes. Behind every overdose is a name. Behind every tent, a story. And behind every silence, a choice. So, if this story moved you, don't scroll past it. Share it. Talk about it. Be the voice for those who've lost theirs. Like, comment, and subscribe to help us expose the truths no one wants to face. Because if Ohio is just the beginning, the question is, which state breaks next? And will anyone be left to notice?